We got a lot to talk about. And Midtown, while east of Greenville has definitely taken the lion's share of what seems to be the conversation and the air in the room, Midtown, by all stretch, is the most complex and diverse focus area that we're considering. And just to echo what Chairperson Sheng is saying is like, if it comes 8:30, it's passionate conversation. 8:45, it might be in our best interest to do what we can in preparation for a more focused approach at really only Midtown for our next conversation, versus starting it at 8:45, maybe a little loopy, and going into the eve potentially, with a focus area that might just need more conversation. That's kind of our feedback, and let's open that. Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a reason we would flip it if Midtown's more important?
That's an option.
That's an option. However, at this point, we're thinking that we may need a little bit of refresher. I don't know if you remember last time personally, I thought it was really helpful that we discussed ASCO first, because I was trying to remember all the colors and the labels. So maybe we will go through and then, go through Las Positas and Laughlin, just so we, again, reinforce what we have learned. And really, hopefully, when we get to Midtown, we already are very well versed with all the colors. I'm still really not really good at colors.
Well, I think the order they're in makes sense, especially because we've had a lot of conversation on Las Positas and Laughlin, and the conversation, if we don't have consensus, we are close to having unanimity that Las Positas Court, most of the recommendations came back is there's not going to be any changes made. There's no zoning changes. Zoning was the requirement for the focus areas that needed to be rezoned to go forward to 2045. And the same issue on Laughlin. Once we decided at the last meeting that we were going to move the BART open space consideration to the rest of the east of the city consideration, there's very little in Laughlin that needs to be decided by this group. The small amount of commercial and residential neighborhood development that's left really should be decided by the Planning Commission and the neighbors and the council. So I think we should go through those, just because we've spent over a year basically saying there's nothing there in either of those areas, yet they continue to come back to us meeting after meeting, and they're consuming staff time and they're consuming advice time, and I think we should deal with them, and I think we're probably going to deal with them pretty quickly and move on to Midtown, because as committee member Troop Massey points out, that is the essence of where our housing numbers are going to be met, and transit and so many other important things, and the creation of an entirely new neighborhood inside the city of Livermore is going to have long-term ramifications. What happens to the existing industrial space at Las Positas Court, which has got another 20, 30, 40-year lifespan to it, is well beyond 2045 and not really material to this committee.
Yeah, we definitely want to, remember what committee member can just said, so that it can be incorporated in discussions later. I'm going to try to do a better job time managing this, and we're going to have a lot more discussion, but I'm only going to ask about the sequence at this point. So maybe we can just do a quick show of hand, any objections as far as keeping the sequence, Las Positas, Laughlin, and Midtown. Just the sequence. Any objections? No? Okay. So we're just going to stay with that, and we're going to open the meeting this way. And I'm going to have to do some basic reading, if you can bear with me. Okay. So in conformance with the Brown Act, no action can occur on items presented during open forum. So to provide public comment, please submit a speaker's card over there, I think the yellow card, and to Debbie there. Thank you, Debbie, for helping. And when your name is called, please stand and address the committee. I anticipate a lot of comments and input in addition to perhaps those who didn't really give us speakers cards. So I'm going to limit to 2 minutes per comment. 2 minutes, Debbie. Okay, you got that?
I got that.
That. your phone, ready to go. And so per person per item. And after about 30 minutes, even though we may not go through all the common cards, at 30 minutes, I'm sorry, I will just stop the open forum period. And I would encourage you to send email, to send letters.
A point of order, please.
Okay.
This is a continuation of the other meeting. We already had an open forum last time. Okay, so.
It's not a continuation.
Yeah.
We adjourned.
We adjourned?
Yeah.
Okay.
We'd intended to continue the item, but there was a noticing error on staff's part, so this is a new item, even though, as the chair said, in essence, it's a continuation of your discussion from December. If you were to continue tonight's meeting, then we would make sure we follow proper protocol.
There's a procedural
Okay.
gap. Okay, so apologize for that, and we all learn as we go. So coming back to the open forum, we're still on agenda item 2.0, and Debbie's gonna call names, and in 30 minutes, that's 7:40, we will stop and move on to the next agenda item. Maybe we can all help me track. I will put 30 minutes on my stopwatch. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. Our first speaker is Loretta Caskey.
Good evening, and thank you so much for the work that you do here. My name is Loretta Caskey, 585 South K Street, Livermore. Decision to break Livermore's urban growth boundary should be based on significant, compelling needs that can only be met by breaking the urban growth boundary, and nothing we have seen so far shows that need. This plan requires the people of Livermore to vote against protecting their agricultural and open space. We know Livermore residents value their protected ag and open space land. So a plan to break the urban growth boundary needs to explain to us what needs cannot be met in a less destructive way. Residents believe that Livermore should be able to attract good jobs for its residents, jobs that pay salaries that support Livermore families. This may mean available office, research, and industrial space. There's a lot of undeveloped and underdeveloped land available for these uses within the city limits. We'll be talking about that tonight, I'm sure. Some are identified by this advisory commission, as well as land on the west of town, all of which can support companies bringing good jobs to Livermore. At the same time, we can preserve the land outside our urban growth boundary and allow the wildlife habitat, equestrian facilities, and grazing land to continue to flourish and nourish the culture of our community. Breaking the Livermore's urban growth boundary is a far-reaching, precedent-setting proposal and should be based on unique, compelling needs that can only be met by breaking the urban growth boundary. There is none of that here that I can see.
I'd like to raise another point of order. I would like to move that we reorder the agenda to put the public comment at the end. There's nothing in the agenda tonight having to do with the urban growth boundary. None of these things involve that. And so I'm moving that we move the public forum to after we have considered the three agenda items.
Not letting the public speak.
I don't know if that'll be the wisest. I hear you.
Well, what I'm afraid of is that we're going to spend 45 minutes.
If you don't want to hear us anyway. Let them go.
We're only allocating a half hour, and while I think some of the Laughlin and potentially Las Positas comments might be brief, I would like to hear before we potentially address Midtown what people might have to say about that.
Okay, thank you so much, Alan. I see your point, and I'm gonna ask Kim to weigh in before we actually put the motion on the table.
He motioned, so it's gotta.
In order for a motion to be on the table, you have to have a motion.
He needs
and
a second.
Right now, this is an open forum for items that are not on the agenda, so that is appropriate to discuss.
To discuss. So do we have a second? Okay, we don't have a second. We go back to open forum. Okay, so thank you, Alan. I appreciate that sentiment. I know where you're coming from. So let's continue. Jean? Yes.
Okay, this is Jean King. The need for more residential land is based on past population growth, rapid population growth. But California and the Bay Area have lost population in the recent years. The population numbers that were given this committee earlier should be corrected downward. Housing requirements come in 8-year segments. Staff has stated that there is enough land in the city, but outside the focus areas to satisfy the residential and industrial needs for the next 8-year term. The housing requirement will be reevaluated for the following 8-year housing requirement. The industrial area should not be changed now to residential in the focus areas. The loss of industrial land in the focus areas is related to breaking the UGB for the Greenville focus area. The letter in the supplemental materials in the meeting packet for tonight's meeting from a landowner in one focus area shows that changing from the present high-density industrial to residential is not a good idea for the owner or for the city. GPAC members have voiced their support of open space and keep asking for ways to have more open space. Most of the area east of the Greenville is open space. Moving the UGB and industrializing the majority of this area to save a small part of it as open space just doesn't make sense. The majority of the east of Greenville focus area contains Class 1 and Class 2 soils that are very suitable for agriculture, including grapes when water is available. If you are a supporter of the Livermore wine country, how can you justify industrializing this quality land that is adjacent to the South Livermore Valley area plan? The small wine impact area of the plan does not seem to compensate for the significant amount of open space land permanently taken out of agriculture if the UGB were moved and the majority of the land were developed for industrial and commercial uses. An argument has been made. Got my timer? Okay, thank you very much.
Great.
I'm Greg Scott. You're getting some of the obvious bias tonight on blasting through the urban growth boundary. It's obvious. I went through the meeting last December 13th. It's ridiculous. The majority on the city council wants to blast through the urban growth boundary. The city staff wants to blast through the urban growth boundary. And you can see from the fealty of these committees, they want to blast through the urban growth boundary. It should be. In the other 4 areas, in every one of the options, there should be data in there that how do you get these options in this area so you don't have to blast through the urban growth boundary. Is that in existence? No, it's not, because of the obvious bias here. You know, who is it for? Is it for TopCon? You know, this is ridiculous. So, you know, I went through 4 hours of this meeting last time on 2 options. And one speaker got up and said, well, at school workshop, there was 8 tables out of 10 that said, we don't want the urban growth boundary. That was not mentioned by the consultant in the meeting last time. You know, and I go, this is deja vu. This is like my first city council meeting 6 and a quarter years ago on the downtown hotel, which wasn't my issue, but the people got up and said, we weren't listened to in the workshops as a community expression, what we wanted. We weren't listened to. And it's like the same modus operandi here. What was the urban growth boundary for? Was it just arbitrary? All kinds of time was spent on establishing it. And we're just going to blast through it. For what? For TopCon? Wow. You know, there's gotta be a more representative way to do this. And we just keep in the same mode, and it's very, very frustrating. And to get a better input from the community. Thank you.
Sophia?
Is it Sophia or Sophia?
Sophia.
Thank you.
Good evening. I want to say that I agree with the previous speaker's statements about not breaking the UGB. Thank you.
Suzanne?
I also agree with the previous statements about not breaking the urban growth boundary.
Hassan?
I agree with the previous speaker of not breaking the up to, sorry.
Julie?
We're very efficient in our family. We also agreed to not, we oppose the urban growth boundary. We love Livermore for what it looks like today, and we agree with both Jean and Greg's comments.
Larry Putnam?
Yeah, I'm supposed to extend growth boundaries. Still develop everything available in the city limits. And as well, if you do go forward with this, I would like to see a navigation easement on not just residential, but also commercial property in the urban growth boundary.
Oswaldo?
Good evening. My name is Oswaldo Segueda. I'm the field representative of the Carpenters Union of Silver 13 in Alameda County. I also work in many places and all over Northern California, so I can personally to speak from personal experience for struggling the construction workers experience on a daily basis. That is why I feel like labor standards language is very important, because it will only help create some people guidelines for developers to follow. Language like a healthcare, apprenticeship, and a local hire. So we'll only set the standards for contractors when it comes time to bid on a project. So I feel healthcare is important for this language, like since like 50% of California construction workers relate to some type of public assistance. So to be able to provide some type of healthcare for their families. So this is one of the reasons why the lack of healthcare keeps workers away from the industry and provides a shortage of workforce for many job sites in California. So apprenticeship is also something we should focus on, since those programs will only elevate the living standards of those individuals by providing them with a debt-free education. With this in mind, construction workers will only be able to secure jobs in their communities and have a sense of purpose. Finally, a local hire will benefit the community in many ways. One could be by reducing carbon emission, by reducing vehicle miles traveling by construction workers. Also, this will make a huge impact by creating a work and life balance for families in this county. So will lead more construction workers to become involved in our community events. Thank you for your time.
Charles Marker?
So the last time I was here, I talked some about how if you stay with the county, because that doesn't mean that things stay nice, right? That it's a mess out on there, really people putting in things like maintenance yards and things. And one of the things that you can do with the county is put in a solar, commercial solar. And so when I went home after the meeting, we got another letter, in fact, a Christmas card from one of the solar manufacturers, people, talking about wanting to put solar panels on our property. So I brought the letter. Second thing is it was said that annexation would cause the change in taxes, and we all understand Proposition 13, and that's not a problem. But there's also the Williamson Act. So we sent a letter. We sent a letter to the county and asked, and if the land's annexed, it doesn't change taxes. No one's Williamson Act contract changes. It just becomes managed by the city, and there's no other change. So I'll leave these, if that's on.
Michael Frederick.
Hi, I'm Mike Frederick. I've been here before and talked on this subject, and the subject is development beyond east of Greenville, of course. That area contains many good soils, especially the southern part, and unlike many other areas in Livermore, it has water. Many local vineyards this year have left grapes on the vine, and in fact I know that because some of the vineyards around my house are still having grapes hanging on them. There's just not enough larger, medium-sized wineries to purchase these grapes. We need another mid-sized winery, and the area, especially in the southern part of east of Greenville, is an ideal place for that, but it doesn't require moving the urban growth boundary. There's been some discussion that there was always an intent to move the urban growth boundary beyond Greenville for industrial uses. If that's true, why hasn't it been done? The urban growth boundary's been put in place a long time ago. And frankly, Mr. Burnham's outbreak earlier really makes me ask, why should I even be here? Does anything I say make any difference at all? Having someone of this commission make a clear attempt to suppress public input is really disgusting. Thank you very much for your time.
Doug Mann.
Well, yeah, I didn't know how the way I'd start this out would change, but I'd like to compliment the group here for not taking the bait of the motion by Member Burnham. Honestly, that shocked and surprised me to suggest that the public comments should just be moved off the agenda till the end, or maybe not at all, especially by somebody who's running for office for Zone 7 right now. I'm not here to campaign for or against. I don't like doing that. I don't like it when people do that, but frankly, you've lost my vote today. We've truncated to 2 minutes, so I can't get everything in that I wanted to say after being surprised like that. But let me just say that Mr. Steinbush last week, I don't know if he's here today, but one of the things he didn't mention is that all the land that he owns, he's also in partnership with Linda Morash, and she is the CFO for Ponderosa Homes for every one of his properties. And she actually owns more. She owns hundreds of acres. Why does somebody from Ponderosa Homes own a lot of land east of Greenville if it's all for industrial development? You don't know what's going to happen if the urban growth boundary is moved. The council, once the growth boundary is moved, they can ignore everything that goes on here, everything that goes on in planning commission, and simply rezone. They can't. That's the way it works. They do a general plan amendment, and they can rezone for whatever they want. That's the way it works, and it's hard because you're going to see that happen. You'll have all these recommendations, and planning commission will undercut, and then council will undercut. I feel for you.
Carol Worth?
I can stay back here. I also am here speaking on keeping the urban growth boundaries. I think of Livermore as well, first off, the citizens, we all voted for it and it should stay in place. But as people, we're born infants, we get to a certain size, and we stop growing. And it keeps everybody healthy, and it keeps the city healthy, and we don't want to blow out, we don't want to grow. We want to keep the urban growth boundaries.
Thank you. And Jane Gibson.
I've lived in Livermore for 50 years, a little over 50 years now, and I've seen so much change go on. Some of it has been positive, but not all of it. This required housing that has been put onto our community is ridiculous. We are not a big city. We have always been a nice, comfortable country town. If you move the boundary, you're looking at, and I was at the workshops, so I know what they were talking about. You're not talking about putting nice, big, beautiful homes out there. You're talking about warehouses and that sort of building. You're worried about the solar companies coming in and putting in the solar farms, as I think of what they call them. I have a friend who lives in Lancaster. They have miles and miles of it. You think, oh, it's over desert, no big deal. Nothing can grow underneath it. They are experiencing erosion that they did not anticipate because there's no roots to hold the soil to keep it fresh. Our beautiful planet that we live on needs to breathe. If we keep covering it up with cement and buildings and not allowing it to breathe, we are doing it ourselves. We are cutting off our nose to spite our face. You need to rethink this. You need to listen to what all of these wonderful people are spending their time here. You guys are wonderful. You've spent a lot of time on this, I know. But you gotta listen to the people. You didn't listen to us about downtown. At least let us have this open space. Thank you.
And that's the last part. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Debbie. Okay, so before we move on to agenda number 3, I want to just do a quick clarification. If today's meeting should go over, if we are not able to finish all 3 focus areas, the continuation of this meeting will remain on the same agenda. So the next meeting, if it should be in February, it's a continuation because the alternative means that we all have to stay here until very late. So that is not changing the agenda at all, but it's a continuation if we needed to go to February. Therefore, it will not have an open forum next time. I want to clarify that ahead of time so there's no misunderstanding that it's a continuation. Today's meeting, we are missing a little procedural step that it was not taken, and we apologize for that misunderstanding. By no means that is an attempt to really to cut out the open forum comments. As I have said many times, this is a very important component of the whole process. Please feel free to send email, to send letters, to come, say, at the later meeting in March and continue to voice your comments. So just a little clarification, and please there will not be any misunderstanding next time. And today's misunderstanding, we just apologize for that. Okay. Does that help? Okay. So consent item, we don't have any, so I'm gonna skip agenda item 3.0 and move to 4.0 matters for consideration. We have a long list of activities. I want to again explain the process so that we are all clear. It's a little bit different, but we really want to follow the spirit of allowing public to comment. And that is very important to us. So we're going to go through as many as we can of all 3 focus areas. The project team will make a presentation. After their presentation, the public will be asked to provide comments. So 1, presentation, 2, comments. And after that, and again, I'm gonna try to limit comments to, is there a rule about how many minutes? Like maybe 1 minute? But please keep the comment specific to that particular focus area. I will have to interrupt you if it's not related to that focus area. And I really would hate to do that, and I really want to encourage your participation. So 1 minute for the focus area. After that, the committee as a whole will discuss. And then the discussions and the summary will be, just like last time, typed up. If the server helps us today, if we have internet connection, will be typed up. Then we're gonna take a vote. And that vote, just to be clear, that is only voting on the result of our workshop 2 months ago, maybe with some consensus items that we all can agree on. So workshop results, possibly another layer of additional consensus items. We vote on that. So there will be 3 votes for each of the for 3 areas. Ideally, we'll go through 2, and if we're really efficient, we may go through 3, but I want to save time for Midtown. So, any questions? Am I doing okay explaining the process? Yes? No? Okay, thank you. So, Amy?
So can I actually have a point of order?
Sure.
We do a comment per item, correct?
Can you speak up?
You said at the beginning of the meeting, you do public comment and then 1 comment per item. We only have 1 item on the agenda.
Yes, that's a really good catch. But because last time we allowed the public to comment on each of the focus areas, even though there was only 1 agenda item, we
only had 1 item that we covered.
So we just want the comments to be very focused for the focus area. Is that like a mouthful? So, but you may not have any comments, but if you do, please only will be related to 1 focus area at a time, just following last time's process to be completely fair to everyone. But I see your point.
Yeah, I think it just doesn't follow procedure, so.
Next time we're gonna do a better job with the agenda. Okay, we're gonna break it up to like 3 different items. I know, okay. Okay, without further ado, Andy? Any other? Okay, Andy, here you go, just kidding.
Thank you very much, Chairperson Chang, and Happy New Year to the committee. I will do a brief introduction and then hand it over to Joanna, as you said, Chairperson, to run through each one of the focus areas. But before I do, 2 items. Just wanted to introduce Mr. Steve Riley. He is our acting planning manager right now. Mr. Stewart retired. So Mr. Riley will be joining us every month, along with Mr. Farwell and Mr. Schmitz.
Welcome.
And as you, and then, speaking of public comment, just to remind the committee, you did receive a comment letter this afternoon on one of the focus areas for this item related to Midtown. So that is, you should have that. So I don't know that we need to go much into this because you did an excellent job, Chairperson Chang, but we will run through each of the focus areas, have a break for public comment per focus area, answer your questions, let the committee discuss, and then deliberate, and we will take your feedback in real time, and that is what the committee will vote on, and then we will move on to the next focus area. As you said, we're going through that order, and then just briefly, what are we going to do with that information? Just like last time, we're taking your direction by focus area. We will prepare a revised land use map that will incorporate all the changes for all the focus areas. We'll conduct further analysis, and we'll bring both that map and that analysis back to the committee for your consideration at a future date, and further refinement. So this is not your only chance to tinker or refine the land uses. So with that, we'll move on to the Las Positas focus area, and I will hand it over to Joanna.
Great, thank you very much, Andy. I'm Joanna Jansen with PlaceWorks. Very excited to be here tonight for this GPAC discussion. We're going to start by talking about the Las Positas Court focus area. This area is right along 580 and North Livermore Avenue. All of the three alternatives for this area maintain that kind of wiggly band of green in the middle along Arroyo Las Positas to reduce flood risk and protect habitat. And they're different kind of north and south of that. So in the residential alternative, that would add residential low density to the south of Las Positas Court. It would add mixed industrial office uses to the north. And then the area between the Arroyo and 580 would be designated open space. So it would probably continue to look consistent the way that it does now. In the middle, we have the neighborhood center alternative. The area south of Las Positas Court would be kind of a mix of residential medium density and then neighborhood commercial along Livermore Avenue. Same mixed industrial commercial north of Las Positas Court. Another difference here is that the light green area along 580 would be an agriculture designation rather than an open space designation. And then finally, the highway-oriented alternative also looks at residential to the south of Las Positas Court. In this case, it would be residential medium high. The magenta there is kind of a combination of both industrial office and mixed industrial designations. And then that industrial and office type of use would also continue north of the Arroyo in the area along 580. So those are the three different alternatives. When we talked about these with the community, not only at the two different workshops that we had, but also through a number of pop-up events and online input, we heard probably the lowest preference for the residential alternative, although folks did support the open space component of that alternative along 580. We heard difference of opinions about what the appropriate residential density might be. The neighborhood center alternative, overall, I would say maybe had the highest preference out among the community. Some people had suggested changing agriculture and that alternative to open space. Some suggested increasing residential density. Others wanted to see lower residential density. So again, really a difference of opinions there. In the highway-oriented alternative, that was also well supported by a number of participants, although some questioned the feasibility of industrial uses, particularly given challenges with access to the north of the Arroyo. And again, others requested that within that alternative, we consider a lower residential density. Finally, some other ideas that have come up through the process. Some folks wanted to consider this area as a potential location for a research campus or for a sports park. Those are two features from the east of Greenville focus area. A recommendation that we've heard for several other focus areas as well to plan for wildlife crossings and to ensure connectivity to existing and planned bicycle and pedestrian trails. Obviously, the presence of the Arroyo presents flood hazards in this focus area, and that's something that needs to be considered. When we had our GPAC workshop with you in November, Group 1 said, don't make any changes to the existing general plan designations in this area. We don't need to change the character of what's here right now. Group number 2 was interested in exploring some potential changes, both north and south of the Arroyo, designating the area north of the Arroyo as a combination of general industrial and mixed industrial, south of the Arroyo, industrial general, mixed industrial office, a little bit of a tiny little kind of notch of residential low density in that golden color that you can see there, and potentially adding space for a welcome center or Livermore history building, especially along Livermore Avenue and really the gateway to the city, or a gateway. And then again, Group 3 said no change in Las Positas area. So we would summarize what we think we've heard so far from the GPAC as overall predominant opinion to not change the existing land use designations. That essentially means we would eliminate Las Positas as a focus area and not talk about it anymore. So that is what we think we've heard. And with that, we can turn it back over to you.
Do I call or Debbie? Okay. So I'm sure the committee will have more questions. We're going to hold off on our own questions and allow the public to comment on this particular focus area. 1 minute each. Do we just raise hands or? I have cards. Yeah, cards. Thank you.
Let's see, our first speaker will be Jean King.
I'm really pretty loud, maybe you can hear me. Okay, without that. Okay, I agree with your evaluation that there be no changes there.
They can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Okay, gee, I thought I was really loud. Thank you. Okay.
I hear you.
Yeah, okay, Jean King, I agree that you should not make any changes. I think that area has been developed for quite a while. I think they are established. I think also that you don't put any agriculture out there by the freeway. It's a ridiculously small piece of area to have agriculture. And I think knowing the climate changes, I think the idea of leaving it there for flood control as open space is a really good idea. So I agree with you. Leave it as it is. It's well-established area. And if you do have to change it, maybe the residential alternative. Okay, thank you very much.
Greg?
Greg Scott again. I know this area a little differently than most of you did because I lived out there. I lived out there. Okay, I was homeless in Livermore area for 6 years, 9 months. So I have a little different perspective on the land. When you're outside, you see different things. Flood control, as Jean mentioned, that's very interesting. I also have a degree from UC Davis, so I studied science, and we studied water in the College of Agriculture. And you don't realize what's coming. Your hydrology reports the city use they're not long enough. Out there in that area is close to where Robert Livermore had his original house. His son built a house not far away, and in 1861 December through January 1862, it rained 10 feet in most of Northern California. Okay, can you imagine how much water went through there? And you're gonna put what out there? Okay, so we're in for big changes. We're big for climate disruption. We're in your corridor for wildlife. Yay, thank you.
Laura Baca?
It's me. I'll come up, sorry.
Hi, I'm Laura Reed Baca, and I actually own an industrial park on Las Positas Court. It's actually the gateway to the city. It's on North Livermore Avenue in Las Positas Court. And I would like you to consider rezoning that. I don't believe it's at its highest and best use right now. It's currently about 70,000 square feet of industrial space. Some of the space is not even being utilized because people don't want to rent that right now. I am working with an architecture firm in Pleasanton, DSK, and we're looking at developing a multi-story retail and residential place right there, and it would be a beautiful building, much better looking than it is right now, although we do a good job right now. But I think it would be a gorgeous piece of property that add to the city. Coming into the gateway to the city, I think it would be actually very, very beautiful. So please consider changing that to a mixed use for retail and residential. I have, as a matter of fact, if you can hold this, I don't know if you can see it. This is a rendering that DSK has done, and as you can see, it would represent Livermore beautifully and do a much better job than the building that we have right now. Okay? Thank you.
Do you want to share that with the committee?
Oh, would you like to leave it with us? I can.
We can give it back to you.
Okay. You have copies of this? You can take
We'll
this
get
now.
that. We'll
Okay. All right, thank you.
Doug, ma'am?
Keep you guys to take the mask off. So this focus area, this is so hard because the theme that we have been talking about and that we haven't seen addressed on areas like this is that what changes are really going to happen if the urban growth boundary doesn't move. And that whole area in the east becomes unavailable. Well, you have to revisit this in a very significant way. It would seem like a shortcut if you weren't looking at what nobody really wants you to do, which is expand the urban growth boundary and build east of Greenville Road. Then I believe that this area would be, you could look at it in a more realistic way for something that actually could happen. And that takes the guesswork out of what would have to be redone again if the urban growth boundary is not moved. And well, I've only got 2 minutes, so I'm sorry.
Larry Putnam.
Hi, just wanted to vote for the no change alternative. You should be aware that that is right in the pattern of the airport. And you just have to go to flight aware. You'll see trading aircraft all day, touch and goes, right over this property about 300-400 feet. It's also used what's called a short approach. So when you want to slip an aircraft in before the people in the pattern mile out, 300 or 400 feet, they're landing. It's also the takeoff when the winds change for 7. So you're 300 to 400 feet accelerating with the highest prop noise, the highest power your plane can possibly put out, or your jet, or your, ultralight air taxis, what might be coming. And this is a high noise area. The only fair thing to do for residential property and commercial is to have them sign a navigation agreement so they totally understand the noise, particles, vibration, all the things that the homes just east of Costco signed up for will be tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna open for our committee members to discuss this area. I know, Alan, I'm gonna let you go first.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd like to clarify that my comment about the open forum was really because I believe we need to be considering these focus areas in the absence of Greenville expansion. People were presumed that my statement was the contrary. That's actually not a very good assumption. So I clarify that listening is a two-way street. I've heard many people say many times that they don't want to expand, and it's not clear that it's going to happen. So I believe that we need, as I think actually Mr. Mann said, we need to actually think about these 3 focus areas under the assumption that the expansion will not happen. And it's for that reason that I believe that reducing the industrial zoning of this is actually a bad idea. That we need to maintain what we have because there's no real expectation that there will be any new industrial land. The light industrial is overall about 5% or less. So it's not like office space. Office space and light industrial are 2 completely different things. And so that, that's really my reason for saying we should just leave this alone. If 5 years down the road, something else makes a big difference in terms of what the thinking is of the community development, I think it could be redeveloped, reconsidered then. But as of right now, I think we should just leave it until it's, other things are clarified.
Sort of a similar comment.
Oh, you don't.
Relieve the pressure on the throat. I'm also a little bit worried about not kind of the flip side, I guess. I'm worried about not changing it at all because we haven't discussed Midtown yet, and it feels like every decision that we delay, like, oh, we're not gonna change anything here, it just puts more pressure on Midtown, which will be our last focus area, to then get everything else that we haven't gotten in all the other ones into there. So it makes me a little bit nervous to not change anything here and just want to put that out. I know you want to kill it, but just
Fair enough, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm not sure I need that, but I am a vocal abuser. Look, I think it's telling that the picture in our booklets of the open space that currently exists north of the Arroyo is covered with water, even though it's been months since there was rains. So, you know, this area is best left as it currently is, which is open space, flood control north of the Arroyo, and it's light industrial, which we know we need light industrial, and that even though offices are coming available, the light industrial land in Livermore is more than 95% leased. So there isn't an abundance. In fact, there's a shortage of available light industrial space. So I just don't see what the purpose would be to change something that's already set with open space along the highway. It's not appropriate for residential. It's not only a flood area, but it's to, you know, from environmental justice points of view, you don't want to put housing, affordable housing next to the highway. And we need that light industrial space. Perhaps in the next GPAC that's looking past 2045, that those buildings will have been at the end of their use, and that would become a good site for residential. But for now, you know, I'd like to move, in the interest of time, that GPAC eliminate this as a focus area, and we move on to the next focus area while we're still fresh.
I'll second.
Oh, wow, all right.
All right.
Pass it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
May I ask a procedural question? I feel like we haven't really fully discussed before taking the vote.
You discussed the motion.
You can now discuss the motion that's on the table.
Okay.
Which is sort of what you were doing.
Yeah.
Okay, can we discuss the motion?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
We don't have to take a vote. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for backing out.
We will take a vote when you call for a vote.
I'm learning. Okay, any other comments? You know, okay, Mel?
I think one of the first times that this focus area was brought up is because the open space would have some sort of brush fire every now and then. I think that's where we started. Thank you. Just to.
Thank you. Just to repeat, I think one of the first times that we had a meeting and how this focus area was brought up was one of the members brought up that there's brush fire every now and then, and the residents that abut that open space are worried about that. So I think if that's one of the only reasons that was brought up, you know, fire prevention is the key. I know my group voted no change in relation to what if the UGB was not, you know, voted in, and then we don't want to lose industrial space in lieu of more housing. So that's my input.
All right, I mean, if I could just, I mean, I wrote some notes, I'll read them. I was definitely one of the
Do we have a
groups.
motion and a second? Don't we have to do something with that?
No, we're discussing the motion.
Not quite yet, almost there, almost there. And I mean, yeah.
Cheers. No.
Okay, I mean, so I was part of the group that voted or recommended that we do no change here. I think when we started this process, this was an area that we were definitely interested in, as we were and are in all the, areas. And, I'll speak for myself. And I think, for me, I think we got there. I think the existing land uses, existing businesses, the lady's comments, who I forgot her name, Ms. Laura. I thought that was an interesting remark. It's the first time I've heard that. I think, my perspective has developed enough that, it sounds and it feels like there's still a healthy ecosystem there, a healthy habitat there that might, that might line up more with the next general plan or just another cycle. And it feels like there's still things that can happen relative to development there outside of what we are tasked at doing. So, I mean, with all that said, I think, I kind of stay put with the idea that we should move forward without this, considering this particular Las Positas Court focus area. Those are my comments. And just for what it's worth, he said it twice now. He said navigation easements relative to his first comments when he was talking east of Greenville, and he brought it up again. I just making a note, that's an interesting point. First time that I've heard that now twice in a meeting. So I just made a note for myself to consider that for other conversations. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought about it until today. So thank you for those comments.
Any other? Okay, questions, clarifications? So I do really appreciate the fact that we spent about a year or longer really looking at this, and I appreciate having these numbers. And I'm with Alana that by taking it off, clearly we will be adding, pressure, as she said, adding pressure to find that those numbers met elsewhere. And perhaps, I don't know if that's a discussion for today, or you already had the answer.
I certainly do not have the answer, but I would just remind the committee that you tasked us with making these changes to the overall citywide map and doing additional analysis and then bringing that back to you. So you will then be able to see sort of the sum of the parts and kind of what the analysis is telling us in terms of feasibility and the ability to achieve our goals. So you may get a chance to look and see, do some more fine tuning, I guess, in the future.
So let me just make sure I heard you correctly. So at that point, if we should feel that we're not really meeting our goal as a city, meeting our vision as a city, creating that kind of culture we want as a city, we may come back and look at Las Positas again?
I was merely saying we'd look at the city as a whole.
Okay.
And the committee at that point would have to make a decision whether to recommend moving that recommendation to council forward or making some other adjustments before submitting to council.
So we can table, sorry.
Essentially though, yes. I mean, you can take it off the table now. We will evaluate it as no change. But once you get the final numbers back, if the final no change numbers are not making sense to you, you can make changes anywhere you want to.
And kind of really reserve this, okay, I feel better.
Go ahead.
We saw a drawing here, and I think it was a 4-story building. And there was a scenic corridor. I think Gene King was involved in that. And so I guess the question that I have is, does that building violate the scenic corridor? And would that require, if so, what kind of action would be taken?
So we haven't determined whether or not it is in compliance with the current scenic corridor. We've met with some of the architects who are designing that building and we asked for additional information. So the analysis is still ongoing.
We're working with Karen Wright to discover the height limit of the scenic corridor. So I don't have the answer, but I don't think it, right now at this point, it would interfere with the scenic corridor.
So at some point in the future, we will bring back a map with the changes to the focus areas. And then again, at a future point, we have been getting requests from property owners and others in areas outside the focus areas. So the committee's gonna see that too, and if this is not in a focus area, you will likely see a potential change on that property and evaluate it as well.
So Joanna, do you mind if we go back to the committee input page? So we want to make sure that some of the earlier thoughts of offering back a little, the smaller type with lots of bullets. Yes, okay. So there's some ideas early on can be met some other ways, maybe wildlife crossings or protecting, as long as they're met elsewhere.
That's correct. So we're focused on the land use right now, and as we've discussed in the past, there may be other goals we're trying to achieve that we don't necessarily need to do through land use. There could be policy implications. We're looking at circulation element or other components of the general plan to help achieve some of those things.
Okay, so any other, because I'm asking very basic questions. Do you have any other basic, so essentially the decision is whether we want to make zoning changes. That's as simple as I can comprehend it. Yeah?
So if I could offer one point of clarification just for the group, that the direction that we're seeking right now is simply how to prepare the next iteration of the map.
Okay.
So what would come back is that iteration of the map. These are not final ultimate decisions that are unrecoverable, and I don't think they are specifically talking about zoning changes down at that level of does something comply with scenic corridor or that land use. It's really how do you want us to prepare the map so we can conduct an analysis, and then you'll have the opportunity post that analysis to make additional adjustments to the map.
Okay. I'm gonna give ourselves one more chance before I call for a vote. Any other questions? Are we ready to vote? No?
Ready to vote?
You are, okay. Okay, we're ready to vote. So I'm gonna call for a vote. Debbie, would you help us?
I will, thank you. So the motion on the floor was to remove Las Positas from.
Can we type that up?
I was just trying to remember if we're voting.
I know, can we type?
How it's worded.
Yeah, they wanna know how it's worded.
That's it.
It's basically that.
Just that, okay. 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 Any other clarification beyond that bullet?
Okay. Debbie?
Committee member Alexi?
Aye.
Committee member Burnham?
Aye.
Committee member Jiang?
Aye.
Committee member Kent?
Aye.
Committee member Kingsbury?
Aye.
Committee member Ladone?
Aye.
Committee member Pete? Committee member Strout?
Aye.
Vice Chair Troop-Masi?
Aye.
And Chairperson Chen?
Aye. Aye.
Thank you.
The spirit of this is really, we want to really make a concerted effort to have a very deliberate process, as much as, adding one on as well as taking one, eliminate as the focus area for the time being. So it may take a little more discussion, but we want to feel good about that we have given it a lot more thoughts. Okay, so that's a good practice. Let's move on to the next one.
Okay. Great job. Our next focus area is the Laughlin Road focus area. So Laughlin Road has the three alternatives that you see here: open space, mixed use, and industrial alternative. I want to be really clear that all three alternatives, as you can see, designate the vast majority of the focus area for open space, that large green shape in the top. So the differences are really concentrated in the area closest to 580. So under the open space alternative, I think this is the area that's kind of within the existing city limits. The open space alternative would introduce single family and high density multifamily units along North Front Road with a new park area, so that's the dark brown and the light beige color you see in the lower left. And there would be industrial in the kind of purple color and highway commercial in the red color. The mixed use alternative would add single family residential and townhouses along North Front, but in this case they would be behind new neighborhood commercial designation along North Front, shown in pink. And then commercial closer to the interchange in the red color. And then finally, the industrial alternative does designate some area for townhomes in that golden color, as well as high-density residential in the brown color. That would be buffered from 580 and North Front by the industrial uses that are in the purple color. And there would be a larger swath of highway-oriented commercial in the red color, closer to the 580 ramps. Those are the three alternatives for Laughlin Road. In terms of the community input received from the variety of sources, we have ideas that to add a sports park in the open space alternative, mixes of opinions about residential high-density housing and general industrial uses. Overall, I would say we saw the strongest support for that center mixed-use alternative, with requests to consider increasing park space, lowering the density of the residential designation, and adding a green space buffer between any new development and existing neighborhoods that surround this focus area. In the industrial alternative, ideas were to, again, lower the residential density from high density to medium density, to reduce the footprint of the commercial development, those red shapes that you saw, change general industrial to maybe a mixed industrial office that would allow a slightly different character of uses, and again, increasing park space. Other ideas for this Laughlin Road focus area are highlighting the importance of aesthetics along the I-580 corridor. Some calls, again, to leave this area as it currently is. A need to buffer residential uses from 580, and certainly this GPAC has talked about concerns about air quality impacts to new homes from traffic on 580. Let the market decide the amount of commercial development. Need to consider traffic and parking issues. Desire to plant trees, and again, to add trail connections and address noise, not only from 580, but specifically to the way station that is there, and creates unique noise challenges of its own. When we had our GPAC workshop in November, Group 1 started from the mixed-use alternative and then suggested to scale back the footprint of the residential and the commercial areas, to pull those closer to North Front and 580, add more park, and add a greater variety of different housing types. Group 2 started from a blank map and built a new alternative that would designate the land along 580 as commercial, but again, keep the remainder of that space as open space, add a commercial neighborhood node, kind of in the pinch point there that you see between the big triangle and the small triangle. And then in this smaller area over to the left, there would be open space along 580, industrial north of that, residential high density north of that, another open space buffer, and then residential medium density in that orange or gold triangle. Group 3 started with the open space alternative, but replaced the all residential quote unquote small triangle with the industrial alternative version of that space, and again adding trails and connections in this area. So as you can tell from that summary, we kind of had 3 different vantage points. This one was a little bit tough to come up with a single voice for GPAC direction, but here's our start at it. And again, we welcome your further refinement and direction. So for that smaller area over to the west, we would start from a GPAC alternative that adds general industrial fronting the 580 with an open space buffer behind that, and then a band of residential high density and a park on the north side of that open space buffer, another open space buffer, and then residential medium density to fill out that space. There would also be mixed commercial industrial along 580 adjacent to the small triangle, We would maintain the existing commercial development that's really right in that space next to the ramps, the red, smaller red shapes that you saw in some of these alternatives. The rest of it would remain open space as it is in all three alternatives. And then we heard last time about an idea that was part of, I believe, one of your motions in December to add a connecting open space and wildlife corridor south of 580. So that's the summary.
Thank you.
I have a question. Are we gonna do questions first and then public comment, or?
Public comments.
Okay.
Is that your question?
Well, the question is, it's currently zoned for school, and I assume that was, because I live not so far from there, this is where the John Paul II Catholic High School was gonna be located, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because your map shows it as school zoning currently.
Yeah, that's hold that question until after the public comment. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's okay. I only have 2 cards on
Go ahead,
this
2 cards.
focus area. Larry Putnam.
Yeah, once I want to kind of give you the aspect from flying over this area. Yeah, this plan has flat terrain. Most all aircraft flying vehicle are coming in and out of Livermore. It's going to fly over this terrain. It's going to be noisy going out, a little less coming in. Here's the thing. We can't just turn north and go to Mount Diablo because that's much higher terrain. And the FAA requires pilots to always fly such that if they lose their engine, they make a safe landing. So, once again, navigation easement was the only fair way to let all the residents know this will never change. The planes will always take off and land right over their homes. And once they sign the easement, everybody's happy.
Doug?
I get Andy. Andy, you gonna partner with me on this?
Got it.
Here we are again. So I didn't expect that the last area would be eliminated, and so my subject is sort of the same for this area. That you are heading into something where I don't know how you're going to do what you're attempting to do, which is fit into what ABAG says we have to do. We know that this is a legal framework that is at the essence of a general plan update in California. And I have been wondering, and I haven't been here since the beginning. I'm not going to go into why I didn't want to be involved on the committee, but I don't know what kind of defense for Livermore that we put up when ABAG said, here's what you need to do. We don't have a representative on ABAG, at least not one that cares about Livermore. And so it doesn't surprise me that ABAG is now putting us in this situation. The 2 minutes are
This particular item brings out a little bit of frustration on deciding which of the options. One, it doesn't seem like you have a good analysis of the resources involved. We're going to have a lot of changes, dry periods, wet periods. What is the water usage? You don't have a quantitative analysis of the water usage of each option. The Public Policy Institute of California has done research in 16 years. 400,000 acres are going to come out of production in the San Joaquin Valley. We can't keep drawing water out of the San Joaquin Valley like we are.
It's not gonna happen. So you can figure out what that's gonna do to the price of food, and you can figure out what it's gonna do to your price of your water. My mom's property in San Diego County, I'm grateful this month that the water bill is not $90 less, it's $450. So the price of water is gonna go up, so you're not adequately evaluating the resources for your options here.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Amy. This is what I was hoping for. You read my mind.
Yeah, let me just explain really quick. So this blue color is community facility, and it's for the BART property, so it's for a station and tail tracks for maintenance. And then this is a floating school designation, so it also has a community facilities designation. But it's just floating there that if this were to build out as a new neighborhood, there'd be a school site designated. I don't have a map right now showing the site. You were referencing Committee Member Kent, but that high school is further to the west, north of 580, near Las Colinas overcrossing.
Okay, so thank you so much for the public comment section. And this area is a little bit confusing to me, but I would love to hear what other committee members they need.
Okay, I think someone uses that.
So, I spared you all my COVID case last meeting, but I did prepare a 3-page document which was publicly available. I had come to the conclusion that it would be nice to have a green belt along 580. I think everybody agrees we cannot put housing right next to the way station. So the question is, what do you do along the strip? And I thought that there's the park that comes behind the Toyota dealer, that it would be nice to maybe continue that on to connect other areas and then have the housing. But quite frankly, I don't see the development or the extension of the land east of Greenville in the near future. It may happen, maybe not, but I believe that we are bound to plan under the assumption that it will not happen until it's actually going to happen. Therefore, I flipped my thinking on this, and I think it was the number 3 that would be closest to what my current opinion is, which is basically changing the red on the right-hand side, the purple. Basically, light industrial all the way along there. And the reason somehow all these things seem to have too much commercial. We just had the Rite Aid close out there on Vasco Road. The trend is more internet shopping, and I just don't really see why there's a need to keep putting in commercial space when I think things are going the other direction. What we need is more light industrial space, and so that's my opinion.
I live very close to this area, and while I agree with the light industrial component of Alan's comment, I also would like to be a proponent for the housing element in this scenario. Rite Aid closing, of course, is a national, they declared bankruptcy, but that's also an indication that area of one of 2 Rite Aids in Livermore, that is one of the areas that has not been patronized by residents, just because there's lack of population in that area. The grocery store there also is a lack of patronage, and so I think it's important that we put some of these housing element in this area to patronize that. While this is technically no longer Springtown, but when that north side of Livermore has to have customer base for some of the, commercial, hospitality and, restaurants that we have there.
No, I was
Yeah. So I think I was definitely one of the proponents of increasing the park space in that area and reducing some of that residential commercial, which is the light pink in the middle. For all those reasons of it's already pretty hard to fill what we have up there with businesses that are being used. But I didn't want to eliminate it because I know when you add more housing like that, you add more opportunities, and I think it would be nice to give any new housing units that are built in that area, and being frank, the existing in that side, somewhere that they can easily walk to and go somewhere that they can grab, like maybe a small bite to eat, maybe something like, it doesn't need to be a big giant QW Mart size parking lot with lots of businesses, but like something small that they can go to, that's close to the park, it's close to their home, that they can walk to, grab food, go to the park, enjoy their afternoon, and kind of like fill out that rest of that neighborhood kind of, it almost looks like it's connected to the neighborhood as is, because it is, just fits nicely in that little corner. And that would be my suggestions, that anything on the east side of that road, getting closer to the Greenville highway intersection, don't have the strongest opinions on, but I do think that we need to keep the housing closer to that corner with the rest of the housing, keeping the housing together, and then giving them a little bit of commercial space, but possibly giving them more park recreational space so the kids and the adults and the elderly people that live in those neighborhoods could enjoy some park space without having to drive somewhere and enjoy it.
Yeah. So I mean, I was a part of the same group as Asa there, committee member Asa, or committee member Strout, and I second a lot of what he had to say. I'd say, another thing that we are potentially able to achieve is, the protection, the further protection and preservation of all that open green space over there. I know, preservation has been a hot topic relative to a few focus areas. And it's something we consider. It's something that, I've been advocating for very, very hard, very hard for in many regards. And this is an opportunity to address that in some regards. So I think there's a win here relative to all that green stuff over there and considering the land uses. As far as what happens in this pocket, I'm looking at the Google Earth map here and look at maps. I consider the flow of it and for the sake of what the next map looks like and what we do analysis on, I think it's in our best interest to maybe make it slightly more colorful than we might find ourselves landing on. But in the same time, like visually, I struggle to see high density housing on the inside of this corridor, split by open space and commercial. Like there's a weird contrast that I can't really see. But for the sake of analysis, we're not making any final decisions tonight, so I kind of like, so the point is I second a lot of what Asa said relative to some of the configurations, on the little nook here that's not open space relative to light industrial and some higher density housing with some open space in the center and whatnot. So I'll leave it on that again. That's where I'm at.
I have a question. Did you guys, thank you for putting that up. Oh, that was gonna be my first question. Did you guys come up with a map of what something like that would look for? Cause I don't know what we're voting on. Because none of us want the three alternatives. We all want it to be different, I think. If I'm saying that right.
We have not yet created that map. We're looking to confirm from the committee that this is the direction you want us to go in.
So we can create
the map.
So there's a lot of head nodding and shakes about what's going to be on that before we vote.
I like what you wrote. I think that kind of captured what we wanted.
Yeah, I think that captures.
Right, we provided a summary. It seemed presumptuous to create a new map, but Joanna, did you want to add a comment?
I
think I would have to go back and forth between the slides, but I think that the quote-unquote small triangle that we're talking about is relatively similar to what you see here. If you can kind of picture that, you know, an open space buffer along 580, then industrial, then another open space buffer, and then residential high density, and then the medium residential. So those layers might stack in slightly different ways, but it's essentially like, yeah.
In this picture, the brown is industrial? No, high density. High density. So,
Can you repeat your question?
So,
no, go for it.
Okay.
I can come back.
is it on? Not yet. There we go. So in the map, Joanne, that you just showed, currently, what this committee, I think, reached a unanimous opinion that the BART lands should be open space. They're currently zoned, they're inside the urban growth boundary, they're zoned for high density residential development. So, you know, yes, there has been some talk about realigning the urban growth boundary. I've never heard the word break used in this committee in 2 years because that's really a loaded term. But there are certain lands that are inside the urban growth boundary that should never be developed, and the BART lands are some of those. They're the richest habitat areas we have around the city of Livermore. It contains, by one estimate, 70% of our alkali sinks and ponds, and it has the greatest critter count of anything. And it would be an important green belt to the eastern edge of the city with, as we talked in the last meeting, the connectivity and the wildlife corridor that can be made available by going across where the motocross court is now, down under where the train crossing is, and connecting to the entire eastern and to the south of Livermore. So I'm not a big fan of sliding the high density residential use, which really should be around transit centers. I'm not a fan of moving it off the environmentally sensitive lands, which it should have never been put into. The urban growth boundary should have never been moved out to that area. So I'm not a big fan of just sliding along the highway. I think as a gateway to the city, just having high density residential right along the highway where you could never open your windows because of the fumes. Some of the other stuff, let's not forget there's a way station there. So there's a lot of braking. Again, you know, I live off Greenville Avenue, so I'm well aware of this interchange. It's a very difficult, dangerous interchange. Without development, it's not going to be improved, so there's nothing that's going to improve it. This is very minor additions to the city that are being discussed. They're not going to create monies to really improve that intersection. So I think it should just stay really, you know, more low, medium residential with some neighborhood serving commercial. You know, the highway serving commercial makes sense because it's essentially right there where the gas stations and the fast food joints, you know, like to be built, and they're built on the south front road, so they might as well be built on the north front road as well. But I just don't like the idea of sliding the high density residential, which should be near transit, just down into the neighborhood. I know that's not technically Springtown, but it's some part of that northern area, and it's just, I think it's disrespectful to the neighbors.
I'm curious if we can look at a map. When you said sliding down,
Oh, it's back to the existing use?
Yeah.
If you say what it's existing zoned for, all the environmentally sensitive lands are actually designated as high-density residential around transit, because it's from when that was going to be a BART station.
And
That's not gonna be a BART station.
sliding down like.
Yeah, so
Oh,
see
no.
all that up
Oh,
there.
okay, to the triangular area.
Right, and then they're
gotcha.
just sliding it into this
Okay,
residential
okay.
neighborhood. Those are all single-family homes all around that.
Okay, now I understand.
So you're gonna put high-rise, high-density housing next to the single-family homes? That's not a good planning process. You know, there should be a transition, maybe townhomes.
So going back to the list, what we've heard is the direction, committee member Kent has now sort of revised this list, and I think that's what he has thrown out to the committee to discuss, and that's, I heard more compatibility with the surrounding neighborhood, so low to medium density, and an open space buffer or open space green belt to the east, maintain that, keep the highway commercial adjacent to the freeway.
I'm sorry, and you're going too fast.
I know, so we're gonna have to type this out, but I think that's what is on the table now.
Yeah.
I'm not following you, so we have to type this out. Maybe I'm the only one who's not following.
It's, if you look at the alternative that you had, I don't know if you had it in front of you. It's something closer to the next.
We want to, yeah.
Yeah.
And if the neighbors there need more neighborhood serving commercial uses, then it could be mixed use. And it could be, you know, with dry cleaners and things on the base floor and some housing above it. But nothing at the kind of densities that's called for by the dark brown color. Yeah, it's closest to mixed use.
Closest to this one?
Yeah.
No, but that's more
So, what
I
does
think
the
they need
pink stand
affordable
for?
housing, so
Peak is,
I'm proponent
commercial,
of high density.
Commercial neighborhood, yeah, okay. So I would like to clarify my statement. The dark brown, I don't think is
There are
ever
single
gonna be
family
built.
homes, it's even less.
So, I did not mean to imply that I believe the high density is appropriate there. I think medium density is more appropriate. And then the, you know, kind of a gradient towards the first, the single family home. That's often the way a planning would do. You have kind of a gradient in density. But it, you know, what, 5-6 story, you know, 50 to 100, 80, yeah, that's just, I don't think that's really gonna happen. That's right on the Greenville fault, by the way. But I forgot to mention the one plot that I made here. I was struggling whether or not that strip, which is purple or pink, it can actually give a significant amount of commercial or light industrial. But in fact, what I did here is I moved Monarch Tractors, I moved Metal Improvement Corporation, et cetera, along that way. That actually is a fair amount of area that could be a significant amount of industrial development. And I was kind of surprised when I actually moved the pieces to see how much you could actually build in that area.
Okay, just want to make sure. There are multiple points being made here. And you can go back to that list, because I'm starting to make more sense.
So just so I understand, Alan, is
Okay.
you're saying light industrial right along the highway,
Yes.
next to the way station.
Exactly.
And then you've got
A green
a green belt that would connect to the large new open space that we're gonna create.
Yeah.
And then residential of the appropriate density.
Yes, exactly.
So we start
I can
with,
support that.
so we start with light pink. Hold on.
Yeah, it'd be purple.
So did I hear to have industrial along 580, is that correct?
Well, that's what I had said the first time, and that didn't change. I was just amplifying it by showing, in fact, what you could actually put in a strip, like is shown on those maps.
But it would only be right along North Front Road. It would
Right.
not go back into the residential neighborhood.
Exactly.
Okay,
So,
can we
can we
document
go to the
that?
map?
So
Well, I mean, it's like the pink and the purple or the red, I mean, that's what this represents.
It's like the one
This, commercial or industrial here.
Yeah,
Industrial there.
Green belt buffer.
Green belt
And then
buffer.
a medium or low residential designation, whatever's most compatible with the surrounding neighborhood.
Yeah.
Am I getting that?
That's what
Close.
I, you know, that's what I was saying, I think David agreed, I don't know.
Yeah.
So no brown.
No brown.
So similar to that triangular, but no brown.
So comments on that?
Comments on that? Okay.
I support higher density so that there's more affordable living. Maybe not that much apartment buildings, but I think that living in here is very expensive, and if there's lower density, then it's just gonna be that much more unaffordable.
And Ellen, to that point, you made a comment, I would like you to better support that comment. You said high density will never be built?
What I've been told, and the staff can correct me if I'm wrong, is that when you look at the economics, you can go up a certain amount of height, and it's a certain cost. If you go higher, the housing actually gets more expensive.
I'm not saying build a huge apartment building, but I just mean like duplexes and single-family homes, I don't think it's gonna be productive for making it affordable to live here.
Well, so really all I'm saying is if you're building some mixture of 3 to 4 stories, that's not high density housing. High density housing is.
So what's shown here in brown is 60 to 100-ish units to the acre, which is very high density. And then there's the gradations, as Committee Member Burnham said. So when we say low density, that's a range of I think 2 to 14, the mediums 15 to 29, the medium highs 30 to 59.
So
Does that translate into 5 or 6 stories?
Yeah, so as an example, so the legacy project in downtown, the newest one, that's around 50 units to the acre.
Okay.
So the high density would be a 60 to 100 unit to the acre project. So potentially as much as twice as dense as that project.
Okay, that makes it more clear. You can see that better.
Yes, so can I.
With that example thrown out there, is that more aligned with what you were suggesting you wanted to see out there, or?
Yes, well, I had mentioned that when I lived in Calgary, I lived in a neighborhood that had single-family homes, duplexes, fourplexes, and apartment buildings, and it was a really vibrant neighborhood as a result of like mixed incomes and lots of people, and I would love to see something like that here, but I know that's probably not popular opinion.
So the apartments are probably medium density, somewhere in that range, to give you a sense. Sort of a 2 to 3 story apartment might be medium or medium high, somewhere in that range.
All right. I guess I misunderstood what looked like then.
I didn't understand that until So let's go back to the bullets. Let's make sure we can vote a few things at a time. Oh, where are the bullets?
Okay.
Before we leave, so let me just summarize that triangular area. Now we're talking about purple, green belt, and medium or less density housing. Can we vote on that first? I mean, sorry, whatever the procedure, can we just document that first? Does that make sense? Is that the consensus?
I'm still not gonna be able to support a low density designation.
Okay, so at least medium, okay. The triangular, so general industrial fronting, 580, correct, so that's purple. Open space buffer, north of that, that's green, correct. Medium density, beyond, north of, can we just be very specific? Medium density residential north of that green open buffer. Okay. I did not hear any discussion about neighborhood commercial. Can we come back to that? What was that?
I think the
I
conversation.
like the small little block of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I think that's
Where would that go in that triangle?
Start to lose it.
just like where that.
Oh, okay.
Just on
What
the other
color
side
is
there.
that? Oh, that's the pink. Okay. So neighborhood commercial to the right, to the far right of that triangle, right? Okay.
Asa also mentioned a park
Oh,
there,
yes.
which I don't know if you guys better on the right or
Like
the
this,
left.
Oh, there.
like the
yes.
sports park
Including the
alternative.
park.
I don't know. Asa, you'd have to clarify if you meant like an actual sports park or like a little
Playground,
square.
grass, have a good Sunday afternoon. Nothing like serious, I don't need a bunch of sports there, it's just like something that the neighborhood could use. Especially if you start building apartments and you don't have anywhere for the kids
Yeah,
that live there.
Could you pass the mic down?
Oh, sorry. There's like
So the park that I was referring to specifically would be more like a playground park, something that every neighborhood should have. And then, especially if you start putting denser 3 to 4 story apartments there, and you're gonna have kids living in those apartments, you're gonna need somewhere for them to go, especially, even if you have on the first floor, you're probably like, that little outside patio area is gonna be 10 by 10, 10 by 15. So a park area becomes even more important the more dense you become in terms of the housing there, because the closest one is gonna be a 10 to 15 minute walk away. And for parents who have kids under 10, they're gonna be a little bit more concerned about kids walking that far, especially across some of these busier roads versus the one that's right across the street or the one that's 2 blocks away. So that's why it's really important when we start thinking about where we put housing is to start putting some of the supportive stuff. And it doesn't have to be supportive services because a grass field is supportive without actually having to be a service provided constantly by the city, aside from maintenance, of course.
Would you group that with the residential destination? There's a bullet specifically to housing.
Yeah, I mean, you'd want the park area that's close to the residential, so it can be used by the residential. I mean,
So including park with that needed.
and I don't know what your green belt could look like, but your green belt could be that park if you put it, like if you have, for the conversation we've been having is that light industrial on the freeway, then you have a road, and then you have the park, and then you have the housing, and then you have it connected to the neighborhood, right? As you get closer to that point on the triangle. So you would go, again, industrial, road, long greenbelt park, playgrounds, open grass, nice trees, and then you get to the residential as you move northwest.
Yeah, so Greenbelt Park, so I live on Findlay Way, and there's about a 50-foot, it's got a bike path, and a bridle path and sidewalk, and there's hundreds of people who go down there every day. And so I would think that would be something you want to do there, but you also want an area where you could have some playground equipment, but I do want to state that, we're not actually designing the development here. What I think you're hearing the sense of is, I don't know how you do this in terms of zoning or whatever, but you have to prescribe a certain amount of neighborhood ambiance, put it that way.
So I do have just a clarifying question for the group, which is the intent of the green belt simply to create a buffer between the industrial and the residential for things like noise and other impacts?
Part of it, I would say,
That would
but
be my understanding, yeah.
but also a place to recreate and bike ride and.
Well, that's the reason
Yeah.
for my question, is
Be
there a
both.
number
I
of
would
ways
imagine
to
it'd be both.
achieve the recreational and park desire that don't require a greenbelt buffer? So I'm just trying to
To me,
clarify
it
what we're
sounded like
solving
it was
for with
just
that
a
buffer.
physical buffer between the, like office industrial buildings and the housing, so they're not butted up against each other, but there's some sort of space that's not a street between them. That's what it sounded like to me.
So would it be
I would
fair-
imagine it to have both functions.
Sure.
I don't-
I guess my question, would it be fair to say that you'd like to see general industrial along the north front, a sufficient buffer of some kind designed to mitigate impacts, a medium density residential, and adequate park space? That those would be the components to have there?
Yes.
But the park doesn't necessarily have to be in the form of buffer if there's another way to achieve that?
I can dig that.
Just to follow up on Asa's comment, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is my understanding that for every development, there's a required kind of a part for neighborhood development. Is it still the same?
It is a requirement to provide open space.
Not every new development has to provide new open space, because sometimes you have development that can be served by an existing park, but if there's not an existing existing park within sufficient distance, we would look to provide you.
So the other thing I want to mention was about the neighborhood commercial. I think that's a fine area, especially if it's maybe a mixed-use building. What, again, in conversations I've had with staff, oftentimes you see this little square and you think, oh, well, okay, that's fine. You find out, well, that's as big as the Granada Shopping Center or whatever. And these things, they look small on a map like this, but they're actually huge. And I want to make sure that we don't have that kind of inappropriate scale. I think that's.
Or use the word sufficient, because it's to be then later defined. What is sufficient on the
What's tailing off what Mr. Cardwell said? Are we getting closer to a consensus? Because as far as how I'm feeling about it, I think that summarizes it pretty well relative to what I'm hearing we're trying to achieve. For that specifically.
So it sounds like you'd like maybe in addition to the things that I included in that to add an appropriate amount of neighborhood serving commercial. Is that correct? I mean, one of the things that will happen after this planning mapping exercise is the feasibility consideration, and we may find that there is not any demand or sufficient demand for neighborhood serving commercial. This triangle here is about half a mile as the crow flies from the former PW shopping center. So it's a little bit longer if you're walking the street, but it's not terribly far from that area, and I agree with other comments that have been made. As shopping patterns have changed, and you don't have people going to neighborhood shopping centers for everything like they used to, it gets harder to support some of the smaller neighborhood serving things. But that, we don't have to solve that tonight. That's what the feasibility analysis is for. So at this point, we can build in some neighborhood serving commercial in an appropriate scale for this area, along with the adequate buffer, the adequate park space, and the medium density housing, all north of the general industrial on North Front, if that sounds like an okay path forward.
That sounds good. So let's go ahead and take off the lines that got striped through so we can have more room.
Just to confirm, you're talking about this area here? Is that what we'd like to handle?
Well, that would be the one that would stay mixed use, right? That would be the only pink on the map.
Commercial.
No, commercial, that's not mixed.
It could go red.
Well, the pink color is neighborhood commercial.
Yeah, so that's the one, I think I showed you the plot. It doesn't look very big, but it's actually as big as Granada Shopping Center, and
That's 4 acres.
Pardon?
4 acres, Brandon just checked.
Well, maybe not quite as big, but it's huge. I think I think you understand what I'm saying about scale. When you're looking at these plots, you completely lose track of the scale of what things are.
Yeah, that's why I think 4 acres for neighborhood serving commercial is gonna be plenty big. I know that lot. That's where they dump the dirt now, right? It's a dirt yard. Construction debris yard.
Let's move on to the other bullets, because I think we got a pretty good understanding of those main bullets, and the sub bullets are pretty solid. So help us understand the next 4 bullets.
Have mixed. I mean, are these?
Take away that one.
Front is north front, buffer, north, bottom, and medium density.
Large,
Based on the recent conversation, it sounds like removing add mixed industrial commercial fronting I-580 adjacent to small triangle is to be removed.
Yes, that's what I'm hearing.
Maintain the existing commercial fronting I-580, that's also to be removed? Or no, that's the highway commercial. So let's clarify that.
One at a time, hold on. Oops. What is, where can you point to the map, the mixed industrial commercial?
Green wall, right?
I think that was the idea of this.
A purple.
And we want more green there.
Okay, so that is to go away? And what takes its place?
Open space.
Open space, okay, like that, okay. So,
I would be fine with making open space, except for again, since there seems to be so much local opposition to the Greenville expansion, I think when you start adding up, as all these people say, try to fit it all in the urban growth planning, I think you're gonna need to find, you're gonna have to put something there. Because we're taking out industrial space to put in Midtown. Where are all these people gonna move?
We haven't finished Midtown or even started.
No, I understand that, but I'm talking about here. I'm saying you gotta, if you're planning on taking out industrial space, other parts of town, you have to create an equivalent amount of space elsewhere, or you're essentially driving companies out of Livermore.
yeah, I see your point.
Okay.
So So let's go back to the map. Let me just reiterate. So the purple represents possibly industrial and job opportunities that we may not get elsewhere. Be careful.
I can get behind leaving that purple on there for the sake of feasibility study. Because I don't think it affects the rest of what we're trying to achieve relative to Brandon's summarization of kind of the gradient that we just talked about. So if it's, I don't want to say as simple, but if we're simply, talking about leaving some purple on there for the sake of getting to the next conversation, let's leave it and consider
It won't just be a little bit, because if you look at the first one, even though it's poorly labeled as open space alternative, because it actually has less open space than the next one, all that brown turns purple as well. And so you're basically saying all along North Front, which is auto dealerships and junkyards and things currently, that would all become available as light industrial, to Alan's point, because where else are you gonna put it if you don't go east? And so there would be, lots of light industrial right along North Front Road, which is on a highway.
Essentially, the industrial alternative, this red piece would become purple as well.
Right.
So you have this and this.
And then the green belt behind it, and then some medium to medium heavy residential, because if you go up to 50 units, you're actually pushing the envelope for what developers will build.
That's a medium high designation.
Okay.
So the question before the committee is, do we add that mixed industrial commercial fronting I-580 adjacent to the small triangle, or are we removing that?
Okay, so that was what we just, all right.
I say leave it open space.
Yeah, I'm open space too, but.
Gigawatt housing.
On the other side. Not on that side.
Just
Right?
because if you move it, then you're moving the frogs and the salamanders and the kit fox and all that.
So are we going to one alternative, or is that the idea?
We need the direction.
Yeah, okay.
Concretely, so if you wanna go to a show of hands for
Yeah.
some of these, if you're at a point, if you're at a
think we're not
program,
going
we
for show
don't
of
need to
hands.
discuss it anymore.
Let's get to a show of hands.
I think the only remaining consideration, as far as I understand, is whether or not to leave the industrial to the east of what you have now deemed the neighborhood serving commercial.
So continue the industrial.
But you would have, go back to that, so you'd have the industrial on the right hand side, industrial, and then you'd have a neighborhood serving commercial, and then an industrial on the other side of that. So whether to include the industrial on the other side of that, I think is the last remaining item.
Let's just get to a raise of hands and get there.
Yeah, let's vote on it.
Is it just all in favor of add mixed industrial commercial frontage I-580 adjacent to small triangle? Can we just get a raise of hands?
In favor?
Sorry, moving too fast.
Industrial or yes or no?
Yes, I mean, removing the strike through that and
Can
leaving
you
it
put
on.
the map back up and just point to it and say,
Yes, industrial.
that,
Hang on. So, do you want this with neighborhood serving commercial and industrial here? Show of hands for and industrial there.
2, 3, versus open space.
Versus open space.
So wait a minute, let's do the first one.
Well, so
Then
I
I
Oh, I
count
thought you were
five.
doing two.
don't know what they're comparing it against though, and that's why he's asking.
Yeah, the yes
the
is
question
industrial,
open space
the no
or
is
industrial?
open space.
Then we could, if you wanted to have a different alternative to open space, you can, but, so if you want industrial here instead of open space, raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
If you want open space instead of industrial here, raise your hand.
Don't tell me it's like,
5. Did everyone vote?
We got
None
10.
of us. Okay. Do we have any other suggestions?
can I phone a friend?
Call their
Sparks
Wi-Fi.
hard.
So remember too, this is simply for the purposes of the next
Analysis.
iteration of the map and the analysis. So this is, it's not your last chance to.
What about it being like an alternative to the LARPD big huge sports park that they talked about wanting, and especially if Greenville's not gonna happen? I just feel like grass and dirt is better.
Sports park here, is that what you're saying?
What color is that?
How about we compromise and you just close the corner? You just look at the middle one and you can see where the green comes down like a little dagger. What happens if you just, if you just drew a line there?
I was just about ready to suggest that as well.
Because it's gonna hurt the view corridor and the approach to the city if you poke the industrial up into that corner like that.
Yeah,
So just enlarge it, but don't take, so
yeah, exactly.
Right. Is this industrial in that scenario?
That's industrial.
So you've got a sliver of industrial, you've got a chunk of neighborhood serving commercial, and then you're back to industrial here.
Yeah, it's a weird progression. I'd rather take the commercial and put that in and then push all the industrial so it's more continuous.
Yeah, why is the commercial like
Yeah, what am I?
Yeah, I put the commercial closer to the neighborhood, this residential commercial would be closer to the residential,
I
not.
think, are we paying too close attention to how sharp these edges are on this map?
Well, I think the question that's been raised is actually a good one, is what should be the proximity of the neighborhood serving commercial be to the neighborhood?
Well, I think it makes more sense to move the neighborhood commercial to that side. That side.
Like all the way
No. Well, I mean, it could be down there, but I was thinking up there where that brown, the brown, where you have brown, and on Laughlin Road. I mean,
I'm colorblind, I'm the wrong person to give.
farthest west parcel.
Yeah, so on that side of Laughlin Road, because it's closer to the neighborhood. If it's neighborhood commercial, it should be closer to the neighborhood.
No, other one, all the way over
Well, no,
to the west.
Alex
I was
said
saying
different
there.
things.
Well,
I was saying.
I don't have a strong opinion about what part
I mean, it got.
What part of West Laughlin? I'm just saying, make the neighborhood commercial closer to the neighborhood.
And you can make the language big enough in that, say, neighborhood commercial in close proximity to support the neighborhood.
That's, okay.
It doesn't need to be.
I think,
And then you can make continuous.
I think we're getting
like
ourselves even more confused,
Yeah.
so.
So we had the commercial here.
Yeah,
Does anybody want to change its location?
I would move it further west.
To the farthest west parcel,
So you would move it over
Yeah,
here.
I
Yeah.
agree with
yes.
you,
Okay.
Mr.
Yep. And
So
then
it's contiguous.
Show of hands for moving the commercial.
Just keep the industrial together.
Okay, that's a winner. So we're gonna move the commercial to the western quadrant. Anything, and what about this space?
Only that, where your hand was moving.
Just like a little triangle,
There.
right
Here.
there.
That becomes more
Would
industrial.
that become industrial? Can I get a show of hands for that?
Sure.
That's a winner as well.
Okay, so we got it,
Because
we got
then
it.
you have a big enough area that you can
Yeah, we
actually do
got it.
something. Instead of having.
Well, it's another 4 acres, that's a good sized parcel.
Yeah.
It's, the spirit here is that we have an even split of wishing to have more industrial options, at the same time wishing for more open space. So this way, I think we got a pretty good, again, just really the spirit of it. I think I'm gonna just defer to the project team to execute that. Okay, so mixed with northern edge parallel, not poking.
we got it.
I think we got it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Not poking
Next one is-
That's cute.
Next one is maintaining existing highway commercial. Can we go back to the map? That would be maintaining this here.
Yes,
Everybody okay with that?
yes.
Okay,
Okay,
Okay.
back to the bullets.
okay,
Remaining area is open space. That's all of this. Everybody okay with that?
correct.
All right, and then the last one,
add a connecting open space corridor south of I-580. Go back to the map. So that's this, I believe. Is that correct?
Does it cut, would it have to cut into that red at all, or it was
No,
short, was
no,
it
it's the area that's white,
Okay.
right running off the screen. That area needs to drop because that's where the corridor is. That's where the train passes under the highway. That's where the critters move. And then that would connect to the green belt east of the city, wherever that ends up being. It may be where it is now, or it may be further.
Technically, I believe the committee already voted to do this.
We did at
with
the last
Tanya.
meeting.
Now we're just confirming it again.
Because the map didn't get updated, so.
Yeah, you got that. Okay,
So I'm gonna call for a vote.
I motion that we vote.
Thank you. I second.
Let's get there.
So so just so you know, we have a new procedure, and I appreciate the project team and city staff helping. We're gonna post this online. All exact wording will be posted. Take a quick look. This will be part of the documentation. Can you change the?
Let's change.
Just so that I can clarify, I heard committee member Strout made a motion.
Yes, I second.
You second, thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. I think a little wordsmithing is okay, but yeah, I'm not
Yeah,
sure
now
of
it's
the word.
motion.
Yes, thank you, Shelley.
There we go.
So much
Good
better.
job.
You call the question.
Yes,
I'm calling the question.
you calling
Let's
the,
vote. So we can get on the.
Okay, so we are voting on
Thank you.
what we have here on the slide. Committee member Alexi,
Aye.
committee member Burnham,
Aye.
committee member Chung,
Aye.
committee member Kent,
Aye.
committee member Kingsbury,
Aye.
committee member Ladone,
Aye.
committee member Pete, committee member Strout, vice chair Troop Massey,
Aye.
and chairperson Cheng.
aye,
Thank you.
okay, time.
time check is 9:05, and I'm gonna request that we move the Midtown to the February meeting, and there will not be an open forum, just so no one is disappointed. That will be considered a continuation, and please, the city staff, please file a announcement within 24 hours, so we are legit. And, Kim?
I was just gonna mention, if you want to continue this item, because it has been considered, you need to have a majority vote to do that.
Oh, yes, let's do that, okay.
And, I mean, just before we get to the vote, just relative, a little feedback to Midtown, I don't know, suggestion. So these colors are clearly a little difficult to comprehend in flat instances. A suggestion to the city, relative to Midtown, the most complex arrangement that we will consume. Is there any way that we can conceptualize it vertically, so that we can consider that conversation when we get there just a bit differently?
I think that's part of the analysis that they're going to do. So we'll be putting the cart before the horse to have them do it for the next meeting.
You could provide reference imagery that would illustrate what one might experience on the ground, but.
Yeah, I mean, really, any visual cues and aids that might assist in having the conversation, yeah.
So I think to Committee Member Stroud's point, doing that sort of in situ in the Midtown focus area, probably not, but giving you some analogous place type neighborhood arrangements, I think we can try to do that. We should have something to the point of, it is very difficult to, Committee Member Burnham's point, to ascertain scale in looking at these things, and so we'll see if we can find some reference imagery that'd be helpful.
Your microphone, you get that paper.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna ask Debbie to help us. What's the?
I move to continue this meeting to
You could do it that way,
February.
or just take a majority vote
Yeah.
either way, yeah, whatever.
Okay, I second, let's vote. Debbie?
All right, so the motion on the floor is to continue this meeting until the February 14th date of our next GPAC. Committee member Alexi,
Aye.
committee member Burnham,
Aye.
committee member Chung,
Aye.
committee member Kent,
Aye.
committee member Kingsbury,
Aye.
committee member Ladone,
Aye.
committee member Pete, committee member Strout,
No.
vice chair Troop Massey,
Aye.
And Committee Member Chang, Chairperson Chang.
I will see you on Valentine's Day. I'm not joining yet, but just so we'll continue this meeting on Valentine's Day. And okay, let's see. With that, let's see. I will not close the item until the February meeting. However, I will adjourn the meeting tonight. We did really well. Thank you so much.